Alright folks, time to do our UFC 188 Velasquez versus Werdum predictions. Upcoming event June 13th being held at the Arena Ciudad, Mexico. I believe that's the first UFC show ever in Mexico. I could be wrong about that, but I believe it's the first of its kind, so it's very important. Obviously, the Hispanic market is a very huge market for boxing in general, and I actually looked some data earlier. They actually do comprise a pretty large set of the actual MMA watching audience in North America. So I think this is very much a sort of indicative of where perhaps the UFC is headed. Obviously, MMA started in Brazil, so already have an ingrained market there with the Hispanic audience. And I think a large part of that, perhaps kind of getting some of the Hispanic audience migrating from the sport of boxing over to MMA. And obviously UFC has that as a huge policy initiative, and I think it's going to be successful. I think it's definitely an emerging market. It's a market with a traditional taste for fighting, and I think this is going to be the first of many shows we see in Mexico City as the forward expansion of the sport goes forward. You know, in the past I've kind of said some negative things about Mr. White's globalization aspirations, but I think in this case it's actually a very smart marketing call, so good job for you, Mr. White, in the Fertitas. Alright, so anyway, the actual card itself, I'll probably skip this one. Not because it's not a bad card, just because I have so much stuff going on. I don't have time for it, but I will give you my picks because, you know what, that's what I do as a fight prognosticator. Look at the metrics here, the main event. Now, this is one of those things where I like to pride myself as being someone who likes to kind of use a more mathematically driven model for picking fights. And in fact, I always showcase my spreadsheet here and analyzing why I'm picking the fights the way I am. As you can see, we have a lot of metrics here, everything from height, reach to significant strikes absorbed per match, takedown average per 15 minutes. So we cover a lot of territory, a lot of parameters. And when you look at this fight between Cain Velasquez and Fabricio Werdum, you're looking at things like, you know, significant strikes landed per minute. Velasquez, he's landing nearly double that of Fabricio Werdum. Actually, he is nailing exactly double more than Fabricio Werdum. Velasquez, obviously a more accurate striker compared to Werdum. He's eating less significant strikes absorbed per minute, so he's a better defensive fighter. Really, the takedown average is where things get really freaky. Velasquez, he's got about 5.3 takedown averages per fight compared to Fabricio Werdum, who's averaging a little under 2 per fight. Takedown accuracy, Velasquez, he's got a higher average there than Werdum. Takedown defense, once again, Velasquez, he's got an 88% defensive rating against Werdum's 36% defensive rating. And really, there's only a couple of areas where, statistically speaking, Werdum has the advantage. One is in the height. He's 3 inches taller, and he is averaging about 3 times as many submission attempts per 15-minute fight than Velasquez. So normally when you look at all these metrics, and obviously striking, takedown, offense and defense all leaning towards Velasquez, but there are two things going on here. Okay, number one, Cain Velasquez has not had a fight in the UFC in close to 2.5 years now. I believe the last time he fought was, well, it's not 2.5 years. That's an overstatement on my part. Okay, he hasn't fought since, I believe, late 2013, so he's got a significant amount of Octagon rust on him. Comparing that to Werdum, his last fight, I believe, was last fall. So, in Velasquez, I mean, he's been plagued by injuries. You kind of have to wonder if he's going to go in this fight 100%. Versus Werdum, who's pretty much going in there at the top of his game. So I think Velasquez is probably going to go into this a little shaky. He's going to go in there a little beaten down. I don't think he's fully recovered. I think he's taking this fight because he's been on the shelf so long he can't delay it anymore. Not to say that he can't win, because obviously fighters win fights with injuries all the time. But I think Velasquez is definitely not going in this fight being the best fighter he can, whereas Werdum, I think, is going to be pretty much fighting the best of his ability, probably the best we've seen in his career. Secondly, I want you to take a look at the date of this fight. It's June 13th, 2015. Now, do you know what happened almost 5 years ago to the date? 2010, remember that? Fabricio Werdum, he stepped in the cage against another heavyweight champion, a guy by the name of Fedor Emelianenko, and in that fight, no one gave Werdum a shot. And what happened? Emelianenko messed up. He got caught in a triangle, and he tapped. And Werdum pulled off one of the greatest upsets in the history of the sport, and really kind of shattered the illusion of Fedor Emelianenko. He was never the same fighter after that. And I look at this fight, and I can't help but kind of say, you know what? The past is the present is the future. And even though all the stats are leaning towards Velasquez, I'm going to push the button. I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to pick Werdum to win this fight. And I'm picking to win this fight not because of some abstruse chronological reasoning, but simply because, like I said, Velasquez, he hasn't fought in a really long time. I think he's going in there injured. Velasquez, obviously, from his fights against Bigfoot Silva, his strategy is he punches you, he takes you to the mat, and he drowns you like a crocodile in your own blood. We've seen that a million times, but Werdum, he really, outside of that one fight against Junior Dos Santos, he hasn't really gotten messed up by anybody. I mean, when he was fighting Alistair Overeem, it wasn't that horrible of a fight. I mean, he just kind of got smothered. But then again, that was back when Overeem was Super Saiyan on TRT. And I don't know. I just think Werdum's going to go in there. He's going to play this very conservatively. He's got pretty good defense. I think if Velasquez doesn't, knock him out in the first round, in this fight, if it goes 5 rounds, I think it's definitely going to go towards Werdum. Velasquez, I mean, he's got a pretty good gas tank, but I think Werdum is a better overall technical fighter. Obviously, the big weakness here for Velasquez, he's not really a good submission fighter, whereas Werdum, obviously, one of the best submission heavyweights of all time. So anyway, here's how I see this fight playing out. I think Velasquez goes in there, he's got the crowd behind him, he's going to go for the knockout. He's not going to get it. Werdum's going to play it very carefully. I think we're going to see Velasquez slow down considerably. Werdum's going to start getting some pretty good shots off. And I think third round, that's when we see Velasquez gas. And I think that's where Werdum starts piling them on. He gets him in the corner. He starts landing some shots. And eventually, it's going to take a while, but he's going to get the takedown. Maybe not the third round, but I see in the fourth round, I see Werdum getting the takedown. I see him locking a submission. I don't know, I keep seeing like an anaconda choke for some reason. And I think Velasquez just doesn't have enough in him to escape from it. And I think Werdum takes this one. Fourth round, submission, new heavyweight champion. So, like I said, I always be controversial. Okay. I'm just going to do my in-depth reviews for the main event shows, then give you a quick cursory glance at the curtain jerkers. Co-main event, Gilbert Melendez versus Eddie Alvarez. This would be a fantastic fight in the year 2009. Unfortunately, both these guys really aren't the same fighters they were way back then. Let's look at the metrics here. Melendez, pretty much even on height. Reach advantage definitely goes towards Melendez. Strikes landed per minute leans towards Alvarez. Alvarez more accurate. But defensively, obviously, Melendez is a better fighter. Alvarez is eating about 3.28 significant strikes per match. Or per minute, which is not good at all. Takedown accuracy, once again, kind of leaning towards Alvarez. Takedown defense goes towards Alvarez. Submissions goes towards Alvarez. All this kind of leans towards Alvarez, but you saw in his last fight, he is not really making the best transition to the UFC as we would perhaps like him to make. And I think Melendez is going to go in there. He's going to win this one by split decision. It's going to be competitive, but I think he's going to do enough to impress the judges. He's going to get some late shots in. So I see him winning a fairly non-impressive co-main event. Kelvin Gastelum against Nate Marquardt. Let's see. Big metrics here. Reach advantage towards Marquardt. Gastelum more strikes per minute. Even though Marquardt is a more accurate striker, Gastelum eating more punches per minute. Strangely enough, his defensive rating is higher as far as striking. Marquardt, better takedown average and landing more takedown averages per fight. Better takedown defense and better submissions. Once again, like I said, the statistics here on paper may lean towards Marquardt, but the one big number we're not showing is the age difference. Marquardt, obviously not the same fighter he was in 2007. Gastelum, he's obviously had his peaks and valleys, but I think he's got a better cardio. He's going to stay in this fight a little bit longer, and because of that, I see him winning this fight third round, a late stoppage. Yair Rodriguez taking on Charles Rosa. Should be an interesting little featherweight matchup. Reach advantage goes towards Rodriguez. Strikes per minute once again goes towards Rodriguez. Better striking accuracy. Charles Rosa, he's eating 3.43 significant strikes per minute, which is not good. Defense not as good as Rodriguez, not surprisingly. Does have a better takedown average than Rodriguez, 3.53 takedowns compared to his 2 takedowns per 15-minute fight. Takedown average better for Rosa, even though the takedown defense of Rodriguez 100% compared to 40%. Big number. And probably the biggest differentiator at all. My apologies, it's kind of hard marble mouth today. Rodriguez has 5 submission attempts per fight compared to Charles Rosa's 2.5 submission attempts per fight. So with all that, I just think Mr. Rosa, he's eating way too many punches per minute. I'm going to give it to Rodriguez, second round submission. Okay, Tisha Torres against Angela Hill. Oh, goodness. Reach advantage goes towards Hill. Insane numbers here. Both these women. Angela Hill is actually landing 7.13 significant strikes per minute. Striking accuracy better. Also eating more significant strikes per minute, 2.73 compared to Torres' 2.47. Defensive striking goes to Torres. Takedown average goes to Torres. Actually, everything involving takedowns goes toward Torres. Submissions, really not the submission fighters are dealing with here. Because of the takedown advantage, I'm going to give it to Torres. Should be an interesting little brawl. I think she takes down Hill early in the first and just tags her out, beats her in submission, ref stoppage, first round, give it to Torres. Okay, and current jerkers, everything else prelims in the Facebook fights. Just real quickly, I've already looked at the data, don't have time to kind of go over them in detail, but I do use the same metric as earlier to pick these fights. Alright, Henry Cejudo taking over Chico Camus, second round TKO. I got Efren Escudero over Drew Dauber by unanimous decision. I'm going to go with Johnny Case over Francisco Trevina by split decision. Augusto Montana over Cathal Pendred by first round knockout. Gabriel Benitez over Clay Collard, second round submission. And Albert Tumanov over Andrew Todd Hunter, second round TKO. So it should be an interesting night of fights. Like I said earlier, probably not going to watch it, but I'll be sure to catch the recaps on ESPN or something. So there's my picks. And remember here, Werdum, new UFC Heavyweight Champion. You heard it here first.